Hello everyone and welcome back to FIFA 22. Today we're looking at the best career mode central midfielders you can buy in League 2 that have an 80 plus potential. Now some of the players in this list are more expensive than others, some of them have better potential than others, but either way they all have 80 plus potential and they're all available in League 2. So some might suit your playstyle and some might not, but I've included everyone that I can find just in case. So we're going to start things off here with Alex Robertson from Ross County up in Scotland. He is a 58 when the game begins. As you can see, he's a 59 already 10 days into the game after I've scouted him. So you've got a bit of quick progression there. He has an 81 potential. Between 700,000 and 960,000. So for me, this is a real bargain option. If you're trying to work with a budget and build an entire team of high potential players, this is definitely one that I think you're going to want towards the top of your list. And potentially with Ross County, there could be the possibility of some player swaps to be able to get this guy even cheaper. But definitely worth a look. 81 potential for between 700 and 960,000. You'd be stupid not to go for him, really, I think. Next up on the list, we have got Rasool Ndiaye. Can play CDM as well as central midfield. 1 million to 1.4 million, 61 when the game begins. As you can see, up to a 62 already. 80 potential, so again, another pretty good option, more suited to that CDM role, but can play central midfield as well. 1 million to 1.4. He's a solid player with that 80 potential, so definitely worth a look. Again, could be decent price-wise for you with some player swaps. Next up, Warren Bondo from AS Nancy Lorraine. 62 current ability, 80 potential, and cheaper than Ndiaye as well, at 870 to 930. So for me, this is more of a bargain option than Ndiaye. Again, a very good player. Can also play right midfield as well as central midfield, so definitely worth keeping an eye on that as well. And yeah, 80 potential. You're going to make a serious profit on this guy. You might be able to do a bit of player swappage and get him cheaper, but no matter what, there's profit in this. Next up then is Moritz Kjaergaard. Yep, butchered that name. 980,000 to 1.4 million for a player who starts at 62 with an 80 potential. Pretty solid player. Again, maybe a little bit cheaper options above hand, but I mean, 62 rated, he's already 3 ratings higher. Well, 4 ratings higher than Robertson. And you're paying a little bit extra, so it's definitely worth an option if you've got the extra money in the budget. He's a good player to get a hold of and can play central attacking midfield as well as central midfield. So, again, a very good option and a bit of a bargain player there as well. Next up, then we've got Tommy Doyle. Now, he will start at a 62, but as you can see, he's up to a 63 already. 1.4 million to 1.9 million for a player that is 62 current ability with an 81 potential. So probably not the best bargain option compared to the 4 players we just looked at, but he is available in League 2 should you want him. Next up, Alex Cardero, centre mid and central attacking midfield. 1.05 million to 1.2 for a 63 rated player with an 82 potential. Very good player and quite cheap for his potential on that as well, actually. I'd be tempted to go with this one. Again, I think it's a bit of a bargain. Not as cheap as some of the players above him, but with that extra few levels of current ability, I think he could be a very useful player for you in League 2. Next up then, Tino Anjorin from Lokomotiv Moscow. He's a 64 rated with an 82 potential. 1.8 to 2.7 million is an option. I think the players we've looked at beforehand are a bit cheaper. I mean, this guy here is like, I don't know what, probably close to half the price for the same potential and 1 less current ability. So I feel like Cardero is probably the better option, but Tino Anjorin is available should you want to pick him up. Next up, we've got Fabian Rieder from Young Boys. 1.8 to 2.7 million, 64 current ability with an 80 potential. Not quite as good as some of the players we've looked at already, but he is available should you want him, and there obviously is profit in any of these players. So if you've got the money and you want to spend it to make something, then this is definitely an option as well. Next up, Vassilis Solis. Can play CDM and cam as well as central midfield. 2.1 to 3 million is quite expensive. He does start at 64, but as you can see, in the first 10 days of this, he's gone up to a 65 already, and he has an 82 potential. So good potential, but a lot more expensive than some of the other players around this area on the list. So he's an option if you do want him and you want someone to cover those positions, maybe even from the bench. But I possibly wouldn't go for this one because I think there's more value elsewhere on this list. Next up, Martin Baturina. 64 current ability, 83 potential. So one of the highest potentials on this list. So definitely worth a look at this one. 2.2 to 3.3 million. Again, there's definitely profit in this. He can also play cam as well as central midfield. Is expensive. If you're rocking with the financial takeover, definitely one you want to look at. If you're not, then it's all going to be down to sort of the weight of how much you've got to spend budget-wise and how many positions you want to cover to see whether this guy is really worth it for you at the beginning of the game. Next up are Neo Pigmal. 2 million to 2.9 million, 65 current ability, 80 potential. 65 current ability is pretty good. 2 million to 2.9 is expensive. You may be able to get a player swap, but not 100% sure of Almeria if it's going to be possible. You'll have to sort of just try it and see what they say. Depends what team you are as well to what players you have to offer them. But I think there's probably better value elsewhere on this list, like I've said already. For 2 million to 2.9, you can get a player with a higher potential for cheaper, really. Next up is Somay Sarai. That's what I'm going for there. He is 65 current ability with an 80 potential, 1.95 to 2.7 million. Again, player swaps will probably be an option with this one against Valerenga from Norway. So definitely worth a look. Can also play left wing as well as centre mid. So again, if you're looking for someone who is a little bit more versatile, this could be a good option for you. Next up, Kevin Salvatierra from Club Bolivar from Bolivia. 1.5 to 1.7 million. This is a good option. 65 starting ability with an 80 potential. So he's cheaper than some of the players around this area on the list, so definitely worth a look. And Club Bolivar are a team you really possibly could do some player swaps with and get this guy even cheaper. So for me, this is probably one of the bargains. So I definitely would look into this one a bit more. It's just a good potential, isn't it, really? Next up, Bernat Torres. 65 current ability, 82 potential, 2.6 to 3.8 million. It's expensive. He can play cam and CDM as well as central mid. I think there's probably better options on this list. He does have that 82 potential, which makes him a little bit more desirable, but I think there's probably better value elsewhere. But he is available should you want to pick him up. Next up, Rafael Onyedika. 2.3 to 3.4 million, 65 current ability with an 81 potential. Decent player, can play centre-back as well as CDM as well as central mid, so a player who's quite versatile. You may want to use him off the bench. That's if you run him with the financial takeover. Or if you want a versatile player, again, I'm not quite sure this one's really worth it. 81 potential. There's more value elsewhere on the list, but he is available should you want to pick him. If you've got the financial takeover, then you might want to go for it. I mean, he's a good player who can cover several positions from the bench, so it's definitely an option for you. Next up, Castrite Imuri, 2.3 to 3.2 million, 66 starting ability with an 81 potential, 2.3 to 3.2, a little bit cheaper than some of the other players in this area of the list, but not necessarily fantastic. I mean, he's got that 81 potential, which isn't bad at all. You might be able to rock a bit of player swaps with this one and get him a cheaper. Can also play left wing as well as cam. So a good versatile player once again. Definitely one to consider. Because if you've got the right players, you might be able to get this guy for close to $1 million, which would be a bit of a bargain for a 66 current ability player. Next up, Ramon Torres can play CDM as well as central mid. 2.2 million to 3.1 million, 66 starting ability with an 80 potential, so definitely worth a look. But again, I think there's probably better value elsewhere on the list than this guy with a 2.2 to 3.1 for just the 80 potential. Is not ideal. There are much better value players elsewhere, I believe. Next up, Eric Sanchez, there you go. That's sort of case in point here, isn't it, really? Look, 2.2 to 3.1. Eric Sanchez, 2.3 to 2.6, so should work out cheaper than the previous one. 67 current ability with an 81 potential, can play CDM as well as central mid. 67 current ability is going to be very, very strong in League 2, so definitely worth an option. If you can get some good player swaps here, you might be able to get him close to $1 million again. But I think he's going to be a really, really good player. With that 81 potential is pretty decent, and he does work out slightly more of a bargain at this point than some of the other players around him on the list. Next up, a player who's an ever-present on these lists the last few years, Enzo Lower Dice, 2.7 to 3.8 million, 67 current ability with an 80 potential. I think there's better value elsewhere on this list, but he is available should you want to pick him up. Next, Isaac Bergman Johannesson, cam, central mid and right wing this guy can play, 2.8 million to 4.25. 67 starting ability, he does have that 82 potential though, so he is a pretty good player. I mean, there's the potential of the player swaps to get him cheaper, but you're still going to be paying quite a bit of money for him. So I probably wouldn't suggest this one unless you've got the financial takeover, to be honest. Next up is Ali McCann, 2.9 to 4.35 million from Preston. You're looking at a player who's got a starting of a 67 with a potential of 81. So pretty good solid player. I mean, if you start as Preston North End, you get this player to begin with, I suppose. That's a pretty good start for you. I think there's probably better value elsewhere on this list. Once again, 81 potential for between 2.9 and 4.3 million is not the best, but he is available should you want to pick him up. Next up, Francois Serrano, 67 starting ability up to an 82, 2.8 to 4.05 million for a player who can also play CDM and cam as well as, of course, central midfield. He's a good option. I don't think he's the best option, but he is a good option. If you've got the financial takeover, he's an option, but I think there's much better value elsewhere on this list. Next up, Jeremy Marquez, 2.9 to 4.2 million, central mid and central defensive mid. 67 starting ability with an 81 potential. I don't think he's ideal. I think there's better value elsewhere on the list, but he is available, and Club Atlas may be willing to do some player swap action with you as well, so definitely worth a look. Now this one's a bit of a steal here. 2.3 to 2.5 million for Fabinho Carvalho. 67 starting ability and the highest potential on the list, 86. So a fantastic option. If you've got financial takeover, you pick this guy up straight away as one of your priorities. And I do think, it might sound a bit stupid, I do think this is probably a bargain player as well. I mean, for the value and 86 potential, I think this is a bit of a bargain. Would Fulham do some player swaps with you? It's possible, but they are in the Championship, top end of the Championship, your League 2, so it's not probable. But if you've got the money, this will be an absolutely fantastic deal to do early on. Like I said, financial takeover, make this one of your priorities. Fabinho Carvalho can also play cam as well as central mid. Next up, Brayan Ojeda. 3.4 to 5 million. He has a 68 current ability with an 80 potential. Don't really suggest it. There's better value elsewhere. £11,500 weekly wage is very expensive as well. So I possibly will spend my money elsewhere. However, if you've got the financial takeover, go for it. Why not? Next up, Kasper Koslowski. 2.7 to 2.9 million. This again is another fantastic option, 68 current ability with an 85 potential. If you pick up this guy and Carvalho, you're going to have an incredible central midfielding pair for a long time to come. An 86 and 85 potential, both for less than 3 million each. It's an absolute steal, so definitely go and try and get both of those guys if you've got the financial takeover. If you haven't got the financial takeover, there's big profits in these guys as well, so why not go for it? Next up, Mattia Viviani, can play CDM as well as central mid, 3.2 to 4.6 million. 68 starting ability with an 81 potential. Good solid player, but I think there's better options out there for the money, as we just looked at with Carvalho and Koslowski. Next up, Sotirous Alexandropoulos. Yep, nailed it. 68 current ability, 81 potential. 3.2 to 4.8 million, quite expensive. Again, I don't think this one's really worth it compared to some of the players you can get elsewhere for lower than this value with higher potentials. I don't think it's worth it, but he is available should you want to pick him up. Next up, Hanno Masengo from Bristol City. 3.5 to 4.95 million. 68 starting ability, 81 potential. Again, it's an option, but we've already seen Carvalho and Koslowski as the better options than this guy. Next up, we've got Ramon Enriquez from Malaga, 3.9 to 5.7 million. 69 starting ability, 81 potential. He's definitely an option. Higher starting ability than most of the others, but that potential is not great compared to some of the others around him. And he's quite expensive compared to other players on this list. Next up, Santiago Navada. He is 69 current ability, 82 potential. This one is a bit of a bargain as well, 3.2 to 3.7 million. Compared to the other players around this current ability, this is a much cheaper price. However, you will have to contend with that 12,500 weekly wage, which might be difficult in League 2. But if you're at this end of the list, I would imagine you're probably got quite a bit of budget to spend, so he could be a very good option for you. However, I still personally would suggest Koslowski and Carvalho. Next up then, we have got Luca Sacchi. 3.8 million to 5.6, 69 current ability, 83 potential. Not bad. I mean, if you've got the financial takeover, this is definitely one you want to be considering. Without the financial takeover, again, there's much better players on this list that you can pick up for a better price. But this is a guy who's going to come in and dominate League 2 pretty easily with that 69 current ability. Next up, Eric Lyra. 2.9 to 3.1 million is fantastic value for this player, who's 69 starting ability, 83 potential. So a bit of a bargain compared to some of the others at this point on the list. So definitely one worth looking to pick up if you want a really strong player now and a player who's going to take you all the way to the Premiership. Yeah, good value really. Just really good value. Central mid, 21-year-old from Club Universidad Nacional. You might be able to do a player swap as well. It's worth a try, but I could not promise that they'll take any of your players. It all depends on what team you are in League 2 and who you have available and who they want, I suppose. And the final player on the list is Marco Bolat. He starts at 69 rated. As you can see, he's very close to a 70. This is 10 days into a game, and he's already improved. 4.6 to 7.1 million. Really expensive. No questions asked, that's really expensive. However, he does have a 84 potential. And not only that, he has one of the most important things that's very rare in younger players, and that is the leadership trait. So you're buying yourself a captain as well. I mean, if I was going to play this and I was going to set up, if I had the financial takeover, I would probably go for Bolat as a CDM. And then I would possibly go with Koslowski and Carvalho as two cams behind a striker. That's just my opinion. You've got Bolat with an 84 potential. You've got Carvalho and Koslowski both with, well, Carvalho's 86, Koslowski 85 potential. So they're all absolutely fantastic and pretty decent values as well if you have the money. I would definitely prioritise Carvalho for 2.3 to 2.5 million. That is an absolute steal. And 2.7 to 2.9 for Koslowski is a really good option as well. If you're trying to work more from a budget, then obviously I would suggest being a bit higher up on the list. You've got players like Robertson and Doyle, Bondo, you've got Kajagard. All should be available for under $1 million. There's Cardero as well. All should be available for under $1 million, especially with player swaps. So there's some great options out there. It's just all about finding the right one for you. And I hope this list has been useful in helping you find the players that you want. Of course, if it has been, hit the like button and of course subscribe if you would like to see some more. And of course, if I've missed anyone, let me know in the comment section down below. And yeah, we'll add them onto the next list. Good night, God bless, I'll be the same. See you next time, bye bye.